So let me welcome everyone. Hi, I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities Team, and it's great to be with you. This is a live video broadcast as part of our year-round Living in Oneness program. We've got a real special program in store, really looking forward. My special guest today is Mark Nepo. I'll be introducing him shortly. A quick introduction to Humanities Team as we get started. In Humanities Team, we see there's one presence, the divine, and see that we're all emanations of the divine. It doesn't matter how far our lives may be from reflecting this truth, it's still true. Our invitation is to live in communion with the divine and be an authentic expression of the presence, peace, and power that are our true essence. We don't need to be perfect or even excellent. Our invitation is to live as one authentically, and the rest will take care of itself. Okay, concerning today's program with Mark Nepo, I'd like to invite you to share your questions by placing them in the question and answer window. The sooner you place them in the window, the better. This way we can get to them during the hour. You might go ahead and begin sharing your questions and comments now. Each week we create this free Living in Oneness program and recordings for those who cannot be present with us during the live program. We do this as a public benefit to accelerate the awakening or the shift that's going on in the world. It costs us about $1,000 to produce our programs each week. We'd like to, therefore, extend an invitation to you to donate to Humanities Team for this free program. If you go to humanitiesteam.org, at the top you'll see a yellow donate button. You can click on it to contribute, or we're also placing a link in the window so that you can contribute. And thank you to each of you for your generosity. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to read a brief introduction for my special guest now. Mark Nepo moved and inspired readers and seekers all over the world with his #1 New York Times bestseller, The Book of Awakening. Beloved as a poet, teacher, and storyteller, Mark has been called one of the finest spiritual guides of our time. A consummate storyteller and an eloquent spiritual teacher, his work is widely accessible and used by many, and his books have been translated into more than 20 languages. A best-selling author, and he has published 18 books and recorded 13 audio projects. In 2015, he was given a Life Achievement Award by Age Nation. And in 2016, he was named by Watkins Mind, Body, Spirit as one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people, and was also chosen as one of Oprah Winfrey Network's Super Soul 100, a group of inspired leaders using their gifts and voices to elevate humanity. And welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit, Mark. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. It's great to be with you again. I appreciate being a part of your good work.
All right. Well, it's a real privilege and pleasure to have you with us. And we're just going to jump right in because there's, I've got just a bunch of things I want to get to. And I know that our viewers are going to be bringing in questions as well. And I thought I'd start here, Mark, with people that aren't familiar maybe with your life, because it's so inspiring that twice you went through a cancer experiences and a lot of changes in your life in the aftermath, and you share that you continue to learn from those experiences in a way that really speaks to a lot of people. Can you just talk a little bit about this so people can understand who you are?
So thank you. Let me give you a little context as I talk about my own journey, and that is that, you know, I believe that every person that ever walks the earth, everyone will be given the opportunity, the chance to be dropped into the depth of love. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a difficult thing. It could be beauty, wonder. There's an infinite range of things that open us to that depth of life. But when we're open, that's when I think the deeper spiritual journey begins, evolves, unfolds. And for me, I'm 66, and in my 30s, I was, a few years after I got my doctorate, and I was teaching at Albany University, and writing and literature and some philosophy, and boom, I came down with a rare form of lymphoma. And it was turned inside out and upside down, and I went through 3 years, the heat of that journey, where I almost died, and had a tumor on my brain, which after all kinds of tests and being with wonderful angel doctors and terrible doctors, I make the distinction between healers and handlers. And So that tumor on my brain vanished, and it was a miracle. And I was thrown like Jonah out of the mouth of the whale of cancer back into life, and there was no normal to return to. Everything, the life as I had known it. And I think people can identify whatever your journey is. Once we're open to the depth of life, often we move through a door, and that door is gone. And we are forced to, like Adam and Eve, meet life all over again. And, within 9 months, I had another tumor appear on a rib in my back. And that was my deepest despair, because then I feared, did I waste a miracle? Did I do something wrong? Had I not paid attention, though I thought I did? And so, at that point, I had to have that rib removed surgically and enter 3.5 months of very, very aggressive chemotherapy, which almost killed me. And so I learned out of all that, well, several things, but, I learned that miracle is a process and not an event. Even the damn chemo was part of the miracle. And, out of that journey, I was raised Jewish. I'm Jewish by heritage, but I'm a student of all paths, which comes from out of that journey, because I was blessed to have people from all faiths and all paths offer me help and kindness. And so still blessed to be here. I'm not wise enough to know what worked and what didn't. And I feel that I was challenged to believe in everything. And all my work, all my books, all my teachings ever since, all these years, have been to explore that door that was open.
Wow. Well, truly inspiring. I love that miracles are a process, not an event. What do you mean by that? I'm sure you've given a lot of thought to that, Mark.
Well, let's look to try to open that further to a dolphin or a whale. We know them from the shore. We think of them as they breach the surface for a couple of seconds, and that's what we think is the dolphin or the whale. But they spend most of their time in the deep, out of view. So which is the dolphin? Is it when they break surface or when they're in the deep? And so, in the same way, so much of what matters in life, the divinity that you're talking about, it happens out of view. The physical world, like the tip of an iceberg, we see the tip, but the base is there. Well, the physical world is a manifestation of essence. And 90% of it is happening out of view, is rooted out of view. And so, so the miracle is happening all along. The fact that the tumor vanished was the dolphin breaking surface. And then grace goes back out of view. And part of our challenge as human beings is, once we've seen something, just because it's no longer in view, we don't see the stars during the day, but we know they're there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I love, Mark, that you've got 2 books out. We're going to talk a little bit about them. You've got one coming out in November. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I love that your work is to, at least for me, as I read your material, it's all about inspiring people. Because of course, there's so many challenges that come along. You face cancer twice. I'm sure all of us, myself, viewers, there's so many things in today's world, health and relationship and financial and certainly political, things that are going on. And it seems that you've dedicated your life to just help and inspire people to really get in touch with the deeper meaning of life and to push on and to really come into the fullness of your destiny. That's how it feels to me as I read about your work.
Well, thank you. And I think that, more than pushing for positive over negative or one outcome over another, in a way, I feel like, spiritual physicist or an inner explorer, that the nature of things is whole and paradoxical and unified. And so one of the basic so I think it always, in spite of ourselves, comes up this way, because that's the way the physics works. So, I really believe that life has been made just difficult enough that we need each other to ensure the journey of love. And so in the physical world, we we travel on vacation, we save our money, and we go to see these magnificent things, often places like the edge of cliffs that have been pounded thousands of years by the sea, or mountains that have been eroded. So what erosion is to nature that reveals its inner beauty, suffering is for humans, unfortunately. I'm not advocating suffering. It's like describing gravity. I'd like as little suffering as I can, but there's a certain erosion to human beings that, if we can hold each other up, reveals our inner beauty. And so, it's incumbent on us to, and I also believe this leads to all kinds of other kind of corollary notions or truths. And one is that, every crack is an opening. If you've ever seen an old beat up barn, and from the outside it looks pretty dilapidated, but from inside, the more cracks, the more the light fills the barn. And this is, what we in our lives, the more cracks we have, the more light gets in and the more light gets out. And our job is to be as resilient and vulnerable a conduit as we can for spirit.
Yeah, amen and amen. And your work also, of course, so aligns with our work of awakening the skills of really embodying oneness of who we really are. So it's stunning. Well, let's just jump right in so we can go down deeper into some of these topics. And I want to talk about one of your books here. I've got it right here with me. It's The Way Under the Way, The Place of True Meaning. Just a stunning book with all of these poems. I've got many of the pages dog-eared, but let's start at the top here. This book encompasses about 20 years of poetry. Can you tell us about the ground that it covers?
Yeah, so wonderfully, this actually there's 3 books in one, and sounds true. One of my publishers was very welcoming in that there were two older books that everywhere they're out of print, and everywhere I've gone, people have kindly asked for them. And so, given the chance to put those back in print, like any writer, it's hard to leave things alone. I wanted to evolve it, so I added about 30 new poems integrated into each of those books. And then there's a whole new book of about 80 poems. So I wove them together in 3 volumes into one. And let me say a word about the way under the way, the theme of the title. And, this to me is the place where there's nothing between us. Nothing between us in life. It's the moment where everything touches everything else. It's that the base that's out of view under the tip of the iceberg, or when the whale or dolphin dives back in. And usually great love and great suffering return us to this place of true meeting, this way under the way. And my first experience of that, we all can identify in our own way, but again, back to in my 30s, I found myself in waiting rooms, cancer rooms. And those people that I met, because of where we were forced to be intimate immediately. And some of the people I'm closest to, I don't even know their last names or where they lived or what they did, but you find yourself in a room and you look and you say, "Hi, how you doing?" And they say, "Yeah, not well." And me neither. Well, I'm scared. Yeah, me too. And all of a sudden, there you are in the way, under the way. And I think every generation, because we're human, we stray and return to this. And I actually think this is very relevant to our times right now. Below left and right, and Republican and Democrat, and below politics, I think that what's happening in America and around the world really speaks to a larger cycle. And we all have this choice. And I've been thinking about this, so I want to just offer it this way. So I think of it as that there were, maybe in the beginning, there were 2 tribes. Imagine in prehistoric times, the first time one human being came upon another and realized they were alone. So one comes to the mouth of a cave, and he looks in the cave, and the one in the cave sees another being and says, you're different, go away. And I think that might have been the beginning of the go-away tribe. And the go-away tribe, at its worst, because of fear, depending on the level of fear, that doesn't have, the go-away tribe doesn't have access to the divinity we're talking about. They're temporarily blocked. And in that fear, what happens? Well, the worst things in history is, well, I can't trust you've gone away, so I'm going to have to contain you. Or the worst is, I don't trust that you've gone away, so I'm going to make you go away. And then we have people killing other people. But on the other side, the one human being to see another for the first time in the cave says, oh, we're different. Come teach me. And I think that was the beginning of the come teach me tribe. And, you know, Plato had said, we are born whole, W-H-O-L-E, but we need each other to be complete. And every spiritual tradition speaks about this, where there are two or more that are gathered, you know, whatever it might be. But here's the thing. We all belong to both tribes. And while I'm talking to you today, depending on the level of fear I wake up with tomorrow, I may switch tribes. And now it's incumbent on you to remind me and help me. So I think we're at a place where we have to decide which is it in our generation. Are we the come teach me tribe or the go away tribe?
Yeah, boy, that's well said, isn't it? That is a very thoughtful question. And as you're talking, this just again gets at the theme of our work, which is awakening oneness. That this ancient truth, this timeless truth, that everything is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. Everything is energy. Everything is a part of one thing, which we call it the divine or divinity. But we could, you know, my aunt is an atheist, so we call it life. You know, call it the earth. Because at the end of the day, it's just all about really serving life first. That's really what it comes back to. Because if whatever this one that we want to call is embodied, and we're a part of it, then we're a cell in this body. We can call it a lot of things, but you know, are we going to be a healthy cell? Are we going to be a not healthy cell? Are we going to show up? Or are we going to go away? Are we going to expire? Or are we going to inspire? We're constantly, and the divine is all of these things, isn't it? We're constantly in choice.
And it doesn't mean, therefore, given what I was just sharing, it doesn't mean, oh, well, we're never going to do away with fear. But it's how we hold fear and how we hold each other when we are afraid. And not serving the fear, but coping with the fear and right-sizing the fear.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's what you're bringing it back to, is that community, that that love, you know, compassion, connection, service to each other. I mean, I love it. I want to just go deeper into this book. Again, I love this book, The Way Under the Way, The Place of True Meaning. And this is one of the books that's available now. Let's just talk about what the way under the way means. You talked about it a little bit, but you in the book you go into, you know, there are really two parts of our life: the first half and the second half, and it's quite insightful the way you speak about how life unfolds. That your book is that your book is discussing here.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think this is archetypal. I think everyone goes through it. But in the beginning of life, you know, I think I found, like, in the first half of life, and again, there's no demarcation as to what's the first half. It blurs, you know, the middle age blurs. Where are we still in the first half? Are we moving into the second half? Nobody knows. But in our first part of our journey, we are looking for how to distinguish ourselves. Who am I? How do I, what distinguishes me from others? How do I know what's unique in me and what are my gifts? And then hopefully we're led through that to make a contribution. And so we look for how we're special. But, you know, as we hit things like I did in my life, like cancer and almost dying, and we have losses, and you know, we even find ourselves through wonderful things like beauty and love and surprise. We're led through that, and there's a shift. At least I've experienced a shift. So in the second half of my life, I'm not looking for how I'm different. I'm looking for what I have in common with other life. So I stopped looking for what is special, but I look for what is special in everything and where that commonality is. And this too speaks to the way under the way, because paradoxically, when I do find that common luminosity, that common beautiful thing between us, it actually affirms my sense of myself. I don't have to push away to distinguish myself. I actually need to embrace. Martin Buber, the great Jewish philosopher, said, the world is not comprehensible, but it is embraceable.
Yeah, that's very good. Not comprehensible, but it is invincible. And I relate to what you're sharing, Mark, because growing up, as you mentioned, with a group, a lot of times it was about just really, standing out, of just bringing something in to stand out. And I'm 60 myself. And one of the things I enjoy now about getting together with the group is really listening well to each person and really understanding the particular thing they're bringing into the meeting, not so much being there to talk, because I already know my story, but to be there to really deeply understand these other people's story, because invariably they're people that play big roles in my life, and getting to know them is a pretty cool thing. Let me bring in a question from a viewer. There are questions starting to come in, so I'll kind of lace these into our discussion. This first question is from Debbie in Fort Collins. She says, Mark, do you have any exercises to help us go deeply into our own experiences and feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a big part of my teaching in my books. In fact, all of my books, as my teaching and writing have merged, all of my books have journal questions and table questions throughout the books, so that you can find a way, if something I raise speaks to you, to see where it lives in your own life. So a journal question, and a journal, in fact, the new book that's coming out in November, called Things That Join the Sea and the Sky, Field Notes on Living, comes from 50 years of my journaling. And I've drawn kind of lessons out of that. And so I also speak in there about the art of journaling, and offer 100 questions that I've gathered through the years in the back, just as a way to do what you're asking. So, but let me just say for a moment that the art of journaling, a journal is different from a diary. A diary is where we do a record of our days, where we do a narrative of events. But journaling is where we enter and maintain a conversation with life. It's where we're in dialogue with everything that's around us and within us. And that proves to be just to augment and unfold our own life of expression. Everyone needs to inhale and exhale. We know this to stay alive. With the heart, everyone needs to perceive and feel and express. You can't just perceive only or feel only and never express. That'd be like inhaling without ever exhaling, or the reverse. And so journaling, and it's not about writing beautiful things. After all, when you meditate, meditation practices are not so that you become a great breather. It's so that you get closer and clearer to life. And the same way, journaling, the life of expression, isn't about becoming a great writer. It's to help you get closer to your own aliveness.
I love that. So journaling, yeah, and Barbara Marx Hubbard is another one who talks about it, and I bought books for journaling also, and they're really valuable. I don't often go back and read them, but just the process of expressing of journaling creates clarity, so makes sense. Here's another question. This is from Mark W. It says, how can we get deeper into and below the ocean to not get caught up in the froth? And how do we get deeper, not be just stuck up at the surface?
Well, I think that's a great question. And so let's stick with the water metaphor to try to understand this. And first off, let's say no one knows, but let's just speak to it. Okay. And so again, let's look at the ocean as a metaphor. So we all know it's one water. Like, we see the waves from the top, but you can't tell where one wave stops and the deep begins. It's all one water. And so likewise, what's inside a person is like that ocean. And the top 8 inches or so of any body of water is always disturbed by weather. Now, if you only live in that top 8 inches, you're going to get battered around. But as we go deeper, That is the depth of being. That is the water of spirit. And again, we can't just say, well, I'm only going to live in the deep. No, it's all one water. But I would say that top 8 inches is our psychology. That's where our mind and our heart interface with the weather of circumstance. And below that, which is why they're all different, every spiritual tradition has a different form of practice, is how to settle. Now, some people take that and say, well, okay, I'm going to settle and try to live in the deep and never live up here because I don't like all the disturbance. But you can't do that either, at least I've found, because it's all one water. So, but when I can be both in the world and in the depth of my being, it right sizes the disturbance of the world and gives me a place to root in the one water. So the ways that we do that, and a lot of my books try to explore that, because if something that's like this speaks to anyone, then we have to look for, no one can tell you or anyone how to do it. That's a personal inside job. But it's all about personalizing our own practice. So what does that mean for each person to be in the world and also at the same time in the depth of our being? Well, we meditate and we do all these things, but practice is for living. It's not a refuge, it's a resource. And so, for me, for instance, if I get really confused or chaotic, I will stop and pause and really reflect or be still. But mostly what I try to do now is to have an integrated practice. I try to be still when I'm waiting in the grocery line, when I'm impatient because the person in front of me at the gas station is taking too long. How do I integrate and be who I am everywhere? And again, as you said in your opening, we're not going to do it perfectly. It's not about doing it perfectly. This is interesting that I've learned about the word perfect, which is a huge fork in the road in education of human beings. The word perfect originally didn't mean without flaws.
Hope you went on mute, Mark, somehow. So you got to unmute yourself there, or Garth can help with that. I'm not sure.
Oh, I got it. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
What? I don't know how that happened.
It was just the last 5-10 seconds is all.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that I muted myself when we were talking about what the word perfect meant. But so what I was saying is that the word perfect originally didn't mean without flaws. It meant thorough. That's remarkable. It meant to be thorough, not to do some things without mistakes. That's a huge fork in the road of education, because what thoroughness does, it makes us wholehearted, which is a lot different than trying to live without mistakes. So I think we're really called to lean in when life pushes us out through the difficulties, pain, fear, worry, anxiety. Our job is to lean back in and be thorough.
Yeah, I love that too. Not that is, you spent a good deal of time just talking about this aspect of the being, which is our inner journey or our spiritual experience or meditation or prayer or walk in the woods, whatever it is. And then just having, I'm using my own words here, but having our doing or our actions in the world stay connected with that being place. And I like that turn of words that, and this isn't to create a refuge, but to create a resource. Which is beautiful, because that's now bringing in the inner transformation is a bridging over to the outer world transformation, where the resource of all the things, the goodness that we can bring to the world from that inner transformation work that we're doing. So beautiful. I want to. These books are about poems. They're stunning poems. I'm going to get to some, including. It's funny. Separate from you, Mark, I put together my own favorites from the book, and I saw that we both had Free Fall as a favorite. So I'm gonna get to that one in a second. But I love that you share that your poems. You say that that it's about retrieving poems, not authoring them. I love that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that is out of balance, I think, in our modern age is that we tend to think the will is so powerful that we're going to create it out of nothing. And what I've learned over time, you know, and when I was a young poet, of course I was taught that way, so I was always looking for things to write about. And there was always this undercurrent of pressure and tension. Well, you know, if I have trouble, does it mean I'm bankrupt? What's the matter with me? And then as I went through cancer and was brought closer to life through not just cancer, but love and friendship and wonder and beauty, and then it started to be, no, actually, this is more about listening and retrieving and being in relationship with the unknown. And then I started to just write about what I needed to learn. I started to write about what I don't know as opposed to what I know. And that's when I began to be prolific, because there's a lot I don't know. I only wrote about what I knew. I would have written very little all these years. And so it's really a relationship. We relate more than we create out of nothing. And so I follow my heart, and the word trust literally means follow the heart. And so whether it's an image or a question or a confusion or a feeling, and as I look and listen, then the poems come, and they are my teachers. And then that doesn't mean because I've retrieved them that I know what they mean. I have to be in conversation and listen to them to understand. So I don't say, oh, well, I'm going to end this poem with this image. That'll be really neat. No, I discover it. I'm as surprised by where the poems go as readers are.
Yeah, beautiful. That's awesome. And as you share, you know, not only that you're retrieving them, but you're having to sit back and really ponder them to kind of understand their full meaning. That's beautiful. Here's a question that came in from Todd in Portland. He says, Mark, what do you think caused miracles?
Well, so of course I don't know, but let me speak to it. You know, I think what causes miracles, and so let's understand this, that all of life is miraculous. So it's just like, you know, when you listen to a radio, you may tune in and or not. Or if you tune in, you may get static because you don't have good reception, but the signal never stops being sent. Another way to look at this is to say the sun never stops shining. Yes, there are clouds, and that's real, but the sun doesn't stop shining. So the sense of miracle, which is the very nature of life itself, when we can apprehend it fully, and being human, we can't do that all the time. We come in and out of being fully here. But in those moments when we can fully appreciate it, everything is miraculous. So I think it's the very nature, the life force of life, the very thing that makes flowers and trees and plants break ground and flower. We take that for granted. That is miraculous. And that same life force, whether it comes through in us, everything is emanating from the inside out into the world. That's the miracle. And when we can align with life force, then that starts to manifest in us. And I think that's divinity. In fact, I think that I've shifted how I understand destiny. You know, we've kind of made a cartoon out of destiny, that, oh, destiny means that in so many years, you know, like Abraham Lincoln was destined to be the president that freed slaves in the United States, or, you know, Washington was destined to be the first. Well, that kind of doesn't work for me anymore. I actually see destiny as the manifestation of essence into the world. Destiny is what pushes the flower through the ground and out of the stalk. It's what pushes our hearts into the world, our gifts into the world. And so let me add one last image about this, and maybe we can go to another question, or I can read a poem. But that I think that our gifts, which we're born with, and just like a tree is in the seed, we are born with our gifts, and they don't manifest like a match, like a wooden match. You know, you have to strike it against a surface, but that flame and heat is in that tip of that match. Well, likewise, our gifts are in us, like the tip of the match before it's struck, and they don't show their light and warmth until our gifts strike against the needs of the world. Until our gifts strike against the needs of the world. And so meaning and gifts and miracle manifest through relationship. Without relationship, they stay dormant. That tip of that match never lights. That seed, unwatered, never becomes a tree.
Right, and you give very unique expression to all of this whole metaphysical discussion. You share when we align with life force, that's when the miracle occurs. And just as Jesus often shared it, you know, not by me, you know, that it is all by this one presence, by the divine, by God, that this miracle occurs. Where he was saying that was his own way of saying aligning with that life force. Yeah, beautiful. Well, let's get into some poetry because there's stunning poetry in these books. I mentioned
the one that you like. I'll be happy to.
Yeah. No, I on my own, separate from your material, Mark. This free fall one, real free fall. It's on page 93 of The Way Under the Way.
Yeah, sure.
Got it right here. It's beautiful. All of these are beautiful. But do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, let me read it and then we'll talk about it. It's called Free Fall, as you've said. If you have 1 hour of air and many hours to go, you must breathe slowly. If you have 1 arm's length and many things to care for, you must give freely. If you have 1 chance to know God and many doubts, you must set your heart on fire. You are blessed. Each day is a chance. We have 2 arms. Fear wastes air.
So there's a lot inside of that one, isn't there? What are some of the key things that came to you as you after that poem was revealed?
Well, interestingly, this is a poem that came to me during my cancer experience at the height of it. I was very on the edge between life and death. And it was something that helped me. I didn't know all that when I wrote it. I discovered it. And I think what it says, it's, you know, to be afraid, when the difficulties introduce themselves, the nature of how they say hello is they're all alarming. You know, like when we're afraid, all of a sudden, it covers everything. When we're in pain initially, it's everything. Everything becomes pain or worry. But then it doesn't stay that way unless we keep it that way. And so one of the things that happens in life is that we then have the chance to meet what happens to us with our heart and our spirit. Again, it doesn't mean it's going to eliminate pain or fear, but it will, as I mentioned, right size it. So, you know, if you only have 1 hour of air to go, 1 hour of air and many hours to go, then, well, right away, that's like, oh my God, I'm afraid. But then everything in life that teaches us to return to the moment and enter the moment, because you know what? Eternity is in every moment. It's not years stacked on end. That's not eternity. That's actually a cartoon of eternity. Eternity is the miracle that we were just talking about, that is like the atom of every moment. And when we can enter every moment, then, you know, there's more than enough time. You know, sure, I've worried about time in my life. I worry, will I have enough time, enough years? And then when I look, and that's just normal, to have a conversation, which again, part of our journaling is to have a conversation with mortality. But you know, if someone is, you know, caught in a chain or a rope, You can fight. And the other thing that you can do is to get small enough that you're no longer constrained and you can slip through the constraint. So I equate this with being centered enough. The more I fight, the tighter the things that are binding me. But when I can be still and align with that spirit in the center, all of a sudden I have a lot of room to move. I have a lot of room to move. And, there is nothing but to give freely. What are we saving it for? What are we saving it for?
Yeah, one of the beautiful things about this discussion, Mark, is as we talk about consciousness and go deeper into it, boy, can't you just feel deeper into it too in this moment? Just feeling into the depth of consciousness of this, this, you call it this lower, this foundational thing in the way under the way. You can just, the sacred dimension to this only moment that is this now moment. I mean, you really can, right now, I can feel the fullness of that. I'm guessing viewers can too. It's one of the beautiful things about discussing this is, it gets us out of our heads and down into that heart space where we're in a really beautiful place of connection. So I want to thank you for that. I'm going to bring in a question here too. This is a challenging one. I'm going to guess a lot of people, coming from different places, maybe would express a challenge like this. This is from John F. And he says, about 3 years ago, I went through 6 months of inpatient chemo for stage 4 lymphoma. It was the most horrible and lonely experience in my life. The cancer left me disabled. I feel like I'm half a man now. Friends and family have told me to move on, but it's hard. My question is, how can I get over the feelings of loss and sadness? I'm overwhelmed with stress. I never heard of you, but I'm enjoying your talk in this program.
Well, thank you, and many blessings to you. What was that gentleman's name?
His name, John F. is, I'm not sure where he's located.
John, thank you for that and for being honest about all you've been through. And of course, again, like I've been saying, my heart goes out to you. And, I know from what I've been through, I don't have any answers, but let me speak to what suffering has taught me. And I have found that, everyone who tells those of us who experience, and this is the paradox or the funny thing, if you will, is that everybody goes through difficult things. People who haven't yet, out of their fear, they think, well, if I can just put what you and I are going through over there, I won't have to look at it. Maybe it won't happen to me. This is part of life. Everyone will go through some form of loss, of change, of transformation, of being turned inside out. And it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. So my experience has been, I know for me, even though I'm well, and it's literally 30 years since I almost died from cancer, I've never gotten over cancer. It changed everything. I've never gotten over, in the last 4 years, I've lost both my parents. My father I was particularly close to. I've never gotten over that. I think that life-changing events, they literally are that. And it doesn't help for people out of their fear to say, get over it, or gee, I wish John or Mark would, why do they have to keep talking about what they've been through, or blah, blah, blah. Well, the geography as we know it has changed, and we are challenged to make a new map, because the land that we had a map to doesn't exist anymore. And we have been challenged, whether it's through cancer, or the loss of a loved one, or someone suddenly falls out of love and leaves you, or whatever, or a dream you've worked toward that doesn't work. Something along the way will change that you care about deeply. And those people who show up, we all grow together and find an intimacy Steve, like you were mentioning, that we were starting to feel, find an intimacy by going through life-changing events together. And those who don't go through it, and they may have their own good reasons, or maybe they're not prepared, or it's too frightening, but there is a language of experience that starts to develop. You start to speak a different language if people don't come along out of fear. And so, you know, I really feel for you, and especially the you know, it is a grief to mourn who we were. And unless we do that, we can't discover who we've become. And at the same time, you know, I'm not the same man I was before my cancer journey, or even who I was 10 years ago. And there are losses in that we have to feel in order to make a new map. But I mostly just feel for you, and thank you for sharing and bringing your life experience. I hope something there is helpful.
Wait, thank you, Mark. And I'll just add to that, our country coordinator, the humanities team country coordinator for Argentina, is a man named Gabriel Abruj. And he had an accident. He was in a head-on car accident when he was in his early teens. Everybody in the car died but him. And he was left with a major spinal cord injury, which he stays in a wheelchair. He is so amazingly inspiring to the world, this man, Gabriel Abruj, as he travels around in his wheelchair and speaks to people. He's a conscious person, John, like yourself. And with this just enormous challenge, he decided that he was going to overcome it by just inspiring people to go deeper, to reach further, to really live in this place of consciousness, of oneness. So, you know, who knows what the divine has here that's a gift for you, but I mention it because maybe you're also to be that kind of just incredible example to the world.
I also want to share, Steve, that I've really come to believe that those who suffer, and we all suffer, those who suffer have the wisdom that the rest of us need. And often out of fear, a lot of people don't want to talk to us when we're suffering. You know, those who are love, this is the old choice between love and fear. But when we can, I think it's important that we recognize when we're suffering that we are stepping into an area of wisdom, if we can listen, that we can bring back to the rest of the living.
Wow, that's beautiful, Mark. Yeah, thank you for that. So, and John F., again, thank you for bringing this in. I suspect that you know, other people have challenges, and you've been a great voice for them. One of the people is asking here, Mark, do you teach poetry classes virtually? And if so, how can I find out about it? This is from Karen B.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, you know, actually what I do, I teach in person all over the country. And I really, when I do teach about poetry like we're talking about, it really unfolds into, it's more about writing and the spiritual growth than it is about crafting language. Now, I've moved from really talking about, you know, how to make a good poem to what does poetry with a big P, which is all art. And so poetry with the way that I'm talking about it now these days is, we don't even have to write it down. Poetry is that unexpected utterance of the soul that appears between us. And so I'm really interested in how the life of expression is healing and deepening. And so I also online, you know, I do have a course that I did through Sounds True, a video course, a 10-lesson video course called, hello, can you, yeah, there we go. Oh, I didn't realize the screen, I'm still catching up with the new technology here. So, sorry. So yeah, so I have a new course that Sounds True is, I filmed it last year, that should be available pretty soon. It might be up through Udemy. That it's called Flames That Light the Heart. 10 lessons on meaning, truth, and kindness. And that's a I also have, there are lessons through Sounds True. I've done some like 8 CD teaching conversations with Sounds True as well. Oh, Steve, you're muted somehow.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
All righty. Okay. Yeah. So that's marknepo.com. And then also the Sounds True site, soundstrue.com, to pick up that course. We're down to not too much more time here, Mark, and I want to just bring in quickly the book that you're working on for November release, as you mentioned it earlier, the things that join the sea and the sky. Sounds beautiful, but one of the other books that we haven't talked about yet, which is out now, The One Life We're Given, which brings in kind of expresses an urgency right there in the title. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I've been blessed that, I've been working on these several books for years, and they're just kind of harvesting within this 1.5 period. So it's quite a blessing. The One Life We're Given, Finding the Wisdom That Waits in Your Heart, really explores the relationship between effort and grace in all the ways that it shows up in our ordinary lives. And, I'm really looking at some of the sections of the book are, finding what can last, loving what you do, and also being kind and useful. And I think that when we come alive and we discover, as we've been talking about, that we really are at heart the same, and that's what strengthens us and allows the miracle to show itself, then there's nothing left but to be kind and useful. To be kind and useful. So let me tell a quick story here, and because I think it speaks about this. I think I maybe talk about this in the book Awakening, and it's an ancient anonymous Hindu story. It's about a man. He's a holy man who doesn't know that he's holy. He's a sage who doesn't know he's a sage, and he goes every day to pray in the Ganges River. And as you maybe have seen pictures, he goes in, he wades up to like his knees or his thighs, and he's praying, and all of a sudden he sees next to him a spider struggling. Well, he doesn't realize it, but it's a poisonous spider. And as he lifts the spider, it stings him, but because he's a sage who doesn't know he's a sage, because he's holy and doesn't know that he's holy, it stings him, but it's not poisonous to him. And he takes the spider and he puts it on the side of the bank of the river. Well, the next day he's in the Ganges, he's doing the same thing. Well, if the same spider isn't next to him struggling, so he lifts the spider, and again it stings him, and he puts it on the shore. Well, the third day, the same thing happens, and as he lifts the spider looks at him and says, "Don't you understand? I am a poisonous spider. I will sting you every time because that is what I do." And the sage who doesn't know he's a sage takes the spider and says, "And don't you understand? I will save you every time because that is what I do." And the story is not just about altruism and kindness. What it tells us is that the strength of our kindness dilutes the sting of the world. The strength of our kindness dilutes the sting of the world. And we actually, by opening our heart, get stronger. When we are vulnerable and our heart is sensitive, we are a finely tuned instrument.
Yeah, but that's a beautiful story, and it all just keeps coming back to what your poetry and your storytelling and your books convey, which is it just seems that we become more conscious through the life that we've been given, and as we become more conscious, we become more in service, and as we become more in service, our life is more fulfilling, and we come into our destiny. I guess those would be the words I would put to how I understand your messages, Mark.
Yeah, well, I think if we have time, I'll tell you quickly one more story, because I think it's relevant as we take this out into the world and to our time here. And this is a story of two, they could be any students, but let's just say they're two Buddhist monks, and could be in any tradition, but they study years to climb a mountain to meet Buddha at the top. And the day comes and they go up the mountain, and halfway up the mountain, one of them breaks his leg. So they stay overnight, and the one who's well thinks, well, I'll tend him and then I'll keep my appointment with Buddha. But the next day, his friend is not doing so well. And he's got a fever, and it's clear he can't be left alone. And that's the crux of the story of every day. When we have more people who will keep their appointment at the top of the mountain, whatever that appointment is, whether it's Buddha, God, being rich, being famous, being well off, trying to keep death away from us, whatever it is, when we try to keep that appointment more than anything else, we have an age of cruelty. And when we have more people who discover that tending who is next to us is the summit of the mountain, we have an age of compassion. And every day, each of us is asked to be part of the Come Teach Me tribe, and to find that the summit is caring for who is next to us. So which is it? We have to decide together. Is this an age of cruelty or an age of compassion?
The parable of the Good Samaritan. Yeah, and may we all be good Samaritans. Beautiful. Yeah, I love that, Mark. Thank you, and let me just thank you. This hour, we're now to the end, and I want to just talk about some coming programs. So, Mark, let me just say, what an amazing hour! Thank you, fabulous. So much wisdom shared with just grace and blessing. Your expressions are beautiful, and the wisdom is really incredible. So I'm going to come back and thank you some more, but that gets us started. Just a few things here as we're coming to the end of the program. One, Humanities Team is a key member of this Conscious Business Alliance. So we've been talking, Mark and I, a lot about consciousness, and there's a Conscious Business Alliance that's composed of 4 NGOs that are global: Humanities Team, the Club of Budapest based out of Europe, the Goy Peace Foundation based out of Japan, and the Fowler Center for Business out of Case Western Reserve University. Together, we created the Conscious Business Declaration. If you go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org, you can read the declaration. It's short. There are only 7 principles. There's an inner yes that you get when you read it. We encourage you to sign it and invite your friends and family and coworkers to sign as well. It says that the purpose of business is to increase economic prosperity while contributing to a healthy environment and improving human well-being. So we're really talking about bringing consciousness to business, which we feel is so crucial right now. And that's consciousbusinessdeclaration.org. Also, a Humanities Team is in the lead on this whole effort to transform business. We know this project is incredibly ambitious, but we are making progress with your support. So we invite you, for those of you that really find that inner yes, feel that this work of bringing consciousness to business is important to, you can go to the Humanities Team website. You'll see Conscious Business at the top. There's a pull-down menu to donate. Whatever you can, $5, $15, $25, anything helps support our mission. We're going to put a link in the window here as well. And thank you also for your generosity in supporting this really important initiative. Upcoming program that you don't want to miss on Thursday, June 15th, we're going to be interviewing Adam Hall. This is part of our 12 Spheres of Life programming. The focus is the environment. That program will start at 9 o'clock Pacific time, and Caroline Chang and Anna Marie Peters are going to be the hosts of that program with Adam Hall. This program is focused on living in oneness. So we want to invite you to something called Community Circle. It's only $10 a month, and it's a virtual intentional community for people all over the world that are living in oneness, where people can collaborate and connect with other leaders like ourselves all over the world. And there's a spiritual activism component as well as an inner journey component. You get access to over 350 programs like this, some video, most of them at this stage are audio, that you can listen to anytime, anywhere with friends and family. Also, there's a book club that you can participate in, and there's every other week, we use this feature here, Zoom, to do live programs so members can come in and share their successes and challenges in an intimate setting. Those are just some of the things that are part of this program. And again, it's only $10 a month. You can go to humanitiesteam.org and scroll down to the rectangle that says Community Circle to learn more, or we're also placing a link in the window that you can click on to learn more. Okay, I'm going to come back again and thank our special guest today, Mark Nepo. Just totally stunning. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us. You're amazing. Just a great thought leader, and wow, just a fabulous program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and all that you're doing. And it's a joy to be with you. And anytime, I love it.
Okay, look forward to having you back soon. And I want to also thank my colleagues and partners here, Garth Catterall, Caroline Chang, Annette Kennedy Meyer. These are some of the humanities team leaders that are my colleagues that have created this program, that have been bringing in questions during the programming. Thank you. And I'm saving the best for last. Thank you to each of you, the viewers, who are with us on these Thursdays most weeks. Thank you for making the time to be here with us. And in closing, I want to just invite all of us to really live as one. Of course, this is ultimate reality. We'll each do this in our own way. And when we live as one, we draw on this presence, peace, and power that are our divine right. Thank you, Mark. Real pleasure here. Privilege and pleasure to be with you. Looking forward to the next program already.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great, Steve, and thanks to everybody else for making it all happen. Yeah, that was wonderful. Great to be in this conversation together.